Hey, welcome to the Thrivecast. It is a production of the Thrival organization, and Thrival has been around, going strong for almost 15 years, where firm owners come from all over the world to build community and grow and build their firms together through our programs, events, education, and conferences. And we want to say thank you to Bill. They are a sponsor of the Thrivecast and have been for many years. We're actually a 15-year user of Bill in our firm. So thank you, Bill, for helping us as we deploy Bill into a lot of our controllership and CAS work with our clients all across the country. Thank you, Bill, for being a sponsor of the Thrivecast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thrivecast. We're probably 12, 13 years in to this podcast, and we bring people on that they know about firms. They know how to run them. They know how bumpy it is to run them. And so I am really excited to bring Kenji, and I'm going to say Kuramoto. Kenji, welcome. Did I say your name right, first of all?
You did.
Well, I've known you a long time, and I've, from a distance have admired you running Acuity, you and Matthew and some of your other partners. And, when you see people doing that, y'all been doing it for so long, it's like, well, there's a fixture in our profession. And then the fixture changed on me. And I'm like, what the heck? Hang on. And I want to talk about, some of the changes that you went through, you and Matthew went through. And y'all are pretty transparent about sharing some of those things. But I just want to run it through maybe some of the audience that listens to our show, mainly firm owners, in smaller firms than yours, so you could give us context to that. But can you just tell me, Kenji, how long you were running the firm, what's Sorren, and the transition that I'm talking about, kind of what happened?
Yeah. So I founded the firm Acuity, and that was a little over 20 years ago. And so we started out as an advisory firm, just CFO advisory work for entrepreneurs and startups. And I guess along the way, we became a CAS practice. We started adding other practice lines. In fact, a few people have said, you know what, you were like one of the very first CAS firms ever. And I said, well, I guess when we didn't know what CAS was then. We were just
you just made it up.
Accounting. Yeah, making it up. And people were needing help with their accounting functions. So we said, shoot, we'll help you. And so, we were early on the CAS side, really enjoyed scaling and building that, even though there really weren't many other people doing it back when we were. We added a tax practice a little later. And so we viewed ourselves as a full-service outsourced accounting firm. Didn't do any audit work. I was an old audit guy from back in my day and didn't want to do that again. But we grew it, scaled it, had just an absolute blast doing it. And right kind of at year 20, we also decided to exit and actually merge it with a whole bunch of other firms, like-minded firms, which then became this new accounting firm called Sorren, which is now a very large firm.
Very large,
I remember the days of being basically by myself, scaling it up through being a small firm, and then probably getting into the mid-size ranks. And then now technically Acuity is part of what is, I think, fast approaching probably a top 30 firm at this point. So a lot of transition, a lot of changes, and things that, Jason, I never, ever would have imagined would have happened. It's wild. Plans later in your career, it's like, this is not what I thought I was headed into, I guess. Really was not. Really was not. I mean, when I first built Acuity, I was a little bit of a crossroads in my career. I was 10 years into the accounting world, and I was pretty unsatisfied, honestly. Acuity for me it felt like my last ditch attempt to say, well, unless I'm going to change professions, I need to do something that really speaks to me. I was just kind of building Acuity for me, and this whole notion of being a fractional CFO for a number of different small businesses sounded interesting to me. And I liked it. And little did I know that I kind of put my head down and focused on that other accountants started showing up saying, hey, I like what you're doing. Do you have room for anybody else? And I said, oh, okay, yeah. Next thing you know, it kind of grew from there. But what started as just something for me to kind of keep me engaged in the profession became, something much different, much larger than I ever expected.
Yeah, much larger. And I think you probably led the way in working with some outsourced teams maybe in other country. I think that's a lot more popular than 20 years ago. Actually, maybe 20 years ago it was not being done.
Yeah, we were definitely, if you go back and look at us, we were a very experimental firm. We tried a lot of different things. I mean, a million things didn't work very well. We tried a lot of things pretty early. I guess we maybe had a higher risk tolerance than most, or I viewed it as I get bored easily. So I want to try to shake things up. And so we did do some things, some that worked well. That's a good example of one that worked well when we went and used some remote team members and grew there. But it was always fun trying to figure out, for me, one of the most fun things to do as a firm owner was just trying to figure out new paths forward, new ways to adapt and adjust, even though, as we're talking about here, change is hard. Change is hard. I'm a guy who likes change, but there are times, especially when you think about your identity and your firm coming apart a little bit or things changing. Those things are hard. Those are difficult.
Yeah, that is tough. Well, how did you, just kind of a little more context, how did you get with your partners? Did you do acquisitions, organics? Probably a mix of all that, I imagine, huh?
It was a mix of all of that. I had an initial partner I started with, a good friend. He still is a good friend to this day, who he and I started Acuity together. And about 7 or 8 years in, he took an awesome CFO job and left. And so I bought out the rest of the firm and ran it by myself for a little bit. So I had some of that experience doing it by myself. Yeah. Then I brought in another partner, Matthew, who you referenced earlier, Matthew May. Yeah. He came in, probably honestly to save me from myself. I didn't. I like the idea of being a single shareholder. It sounds great, but I found out that I was a better version of a leader when I had other peers around me. And so Matthew came in and kind of saved me from myself, I say. We were getting very busy and we were starting to launch CAS. And so Matthew came in. And then it really was Matthew and I until we started doing some more acquisitions. So we were mostly, we had a pretty strong organic growth rate. And then we thought, maybe we should try out some acquisitions. We had been approached a few times and we were curious about, well, wait a minute, why don't we do one? And so we ended up doing two. I'd say one that was, so-so, a lot of lessons learned that, and that's okay, because we actually went into that one hoping just to learn. I always tell people to build a muscle, to learn how to do acquisitions. We thought was an important skill set.
Nice.
And so we did that. And then our second one went great. And that one probably only happened because we'd got one under our belt first and tried some things. So we did do a combination of organic growth and acquisition growth. And again, we had Matthew and I as the main partners. Through one of the acquisitions, we picked up other partners. But we were a pretty small ownership group otherwise. We didn't have a whole lot of other partners out there. We kind of grew it and scaled the whole way. It was mostly me and Matthew and a few minority partners.
Okay, yeah. And what revenue size when you finally rolled into Sorren?
Yeah, we were about $12 million in revenue by the time we rolled into Sorren. And so we'd kind of come through, I think a lot of firms go through these, a few different areas to where, and again, I guess it's interesting. I always felt like we were small and gosh, we got to get bigger and bigger. And I look back at it now and go, gosh, I guess we were, for pretty much a pure CAS firm, we had a little bit of tax.
That's pretty big, yeah.
Pretty sizable for just CAS. But yeah, we had to get through some of those plateaus. I think we found there were some natural spots that are a little bit tricky to break through. And so we'd occasionally get stuck at a revenue level or a headcount level and do a few things and try some things to break through. And we'd find our way through occasionally. But we were also pretty good about being, I think many accountants are like this, and firm owners listening to this probably feel this way. We're pretty good about putting our heads down and just grinding and doing the work year in and year out. And there's some really strong attributes to that. I think you can kind of, that persistence, that consistency, but there's also some dangers too. You can kind of put your head down for too long and kind of pick your head up and go, gosh, the world just changed on me. But we were pretty good about grinding things out and throwing enough experiments and to keep things at least different enough that we'd usually find a few things that worked and we'd start, if something worked, we'd just start doubling down on it until that stopped working and we'd find something new.
Yeah. Well, okay. So 10 years, in the profession before you started Acuity. Acuity is about 20, right? So you're 30 years into your career.
That's right.
I mean, and that's when things for you started changing. You know, and at one point I was looking at, you know, some of the shows you and Matthew have done on this transition from Acuity into Sorren. And one phrase you said, I realized I'm just not an accountant anymore. Which is like, it's like, well, 30 years, I think you are an accountant. So what are you talking about? But there was some kind of change going on. Was that hard on you and Matthew, or hard on you, or why did it come up? Did you start that, or did this idea with Sorren make you think maybe this is my time to transition, or what happened really?
Yeah. I'll go back first. The first half of that one, I'll say, I always felt like, looking back now, as like you said, as guys like us get a little older, you can look back across this longer career in life.
Yeah,
I was very intrigued by accounting as a young person, as a teenager, because there was my dad's best friend was a great entrepreneur, someone I really admired and looked up to, a very successful guy and a really wonderful human being. I thought, I just want to be like him. You know, as a young person, you kind of find someone like that.
Cool. And
when I was getting ready to go to school, I asked, I said, what did he study? And he said, accounting. I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, why? He said, well, accounting is the language of business. And that, I think many of us have heard that before. That captivated me. I was really interested in that. I thought, that's interesting. And I always had that about, like, man, I just wanted the language of business, and communicating and understanding how businesses work was really appealing to me. And I think that's why I was pretty burned out, Jason, in my first 10 years. Okay. Despite the fact I had probably the best of the best jobs in my first decade. If you go back and look at my resume from my first 10 years, you'd say, gosh, boy, you just hit it out of the park as an accountant. However, I felt very far away from that initial mission of kind of understanding the language of business. I was kind of down in the weeds in a big global public accounting firm and ticking and tying and things. And I didn't really, then when I went into private for a little while. I was the controller and CFO of a company, and I felt very back office. I wasn't really being asked my opinion on things, and you're the back office folks, y'all are a cost center back there. And so I was frustrated. I say all that context in when I said I don't feel like an accountant. I think I always viewed accounting as an avenue to really get in and understand business, and work and build businesses were fascinating to me. And I think along the way I became an accountant. I was trained up in great universities, great accounting firms along the way. But especially once I got to Acuity and we started growing and scaling, I realized that I needed to probably put down a bit of the practitioner in me and start learning how to be a CEO a little bit. And luckily for me, I'd always been kind of interested in that. That was always interesting. So the more I kind of took on CEO opportunities, it wasn't that hard for me to kind of let go some of the practitioner side. And I know that made others who are listening may go, oh, that sounds like me. There's probably a lot who also go, I love being a practitioner. My identity is wrapped up in being a strong practitioner. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There are many times I wish I was a little bit better of a practitioner, but that's where I kind of over the years leaned in hard into, I need to be the best CEO I can be, or managing partner of a firm I can be. And so I focused on that. So by the time we got through 20 years of Acuity, it had been well over a decade since I'd done any direct work with clients, or so I felt a little separated from it. I did, truly. And then, but the back part you mentioned, like, how did we come to this, was as we were at a partner retreat offsite. We were up probably, I was going to say not too far from you. We were up in northern Georgia, up in the mountains. We like to go up there and do a little partner retreat. And we were up there, and we were talking about our 20 years and how wild that was, how time flew. And we said, we need to probably do something to celebrate that milestone. And we kind of figured out some cool things to do during the year to celebrate. But then we kind of looked at each other and said, what do we want the next 20 years to look like? That sounds strange. And we kind of thought, I don't know, I've never thought that far ahead, or even a decade.
Sure. Yeah.
And we had a very candid conversation about what we thought, what we thought our people, what we thought our clients, what we thought the firm needed, what was going to need in the next 10 years, we said. we kind of looked at each other and said, well, gosh, we're all the owners here. What do we think we need? Like, what's going to happen in our lives? And we kind of took stock of that and said,
Nice.
looked at the ages of our partners, of our kids, of our parents, you name it. And we kind of just had a really honest discussion. And we thought there's going to be a lot of change. Are we up for it? And we kind of said, yeah, we love what we're doing. We really, we just come off another record year of growth at the firm. We thought, there's going to be a lot changing. We didn't really know what the external world looked like. What it would be like merging with other people or being acquired. And so I said, well, if we want to find out, we could go run a process if we want, And they said, what do you mean a process? I said, well, we could go out there and go to market, and we get pinged every day like every other accounting firm does.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All that. But we said, what if we flipped it? Instead of just responding to them, what if we went out and said, okay, we're going to run a process. And anybody who's interested, come on it, come take your best shot. With the agreement amongst all of us partners was the ultimate option would always be, if we didn't want to do something, shoot, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And so that's how it started. And we said this could be a very expensive proposition because investment bankers and things like this are not cheap.
Right.
But we also knew we were going to get a very good look at what what we kind of saw is that foggy, like, what could the future look like? This was going to help us crystallize some of that. And we could go, gosh, okay, this helps us make better decisions for the longevity of the firm. And that's what we did. And we felt like doing that from a position of strength when we were already in great shape. We were, all of us were in our early 50s, so we were not, we're not, hey, we still got some left, don't we, Jason, at this age?
For sure we do, man.
Yeah, so we could keep going. No big deal. We're not one foot in the grave or anything like that. So, but we thought now was a good time to just check it out and see. And that process ended up being incredibly helpful and very clarifying for us. And so that was the impetus right there, Jason, that got us going ahead. But that took about a year to do that fully. It took some time and a lot of commitment on our part to really think ahead about that.
So you put yourself up for sale in a sense, maybe through these investment bankers. I don't know. You didn't put a sign maybe on LinkedIn. Maybe you did. I don't know.
No, we didn't. It was
but you went kind of some professional routes to be like,
we sure did.
What would somebody do in buying us? And did these investment bankers find other firms, or did y'all just bump into them and go, wait, we're seeing we all are having some similar, because I thought Sorren was a firm I hadn't heard of, but y'all created Sorren from a conglomerate of how many, 7, 8 firms? Or
actually it was 12.
12, okay.
I think now they've already added a bunch more too. They may be getting close to 20 now.
Oh, really? Okay. Because, how long has Sorren been around? Is it a year, 2 years, a year, 2 years?
It's been 2 years, not 2 years now. The first few firms rolled in. We were kind of in that first year. We were kind of in the first wave, first group of them.
Okay.
And so, that was, the process was, I found the process itself fascinating, Jason. I really did. It spoke to me because it felt like, and it was truly, we were in control of it. We said, and again, not inexpensive to do, but I was getting a little tired of all the inbound stuff coming to me. Hey, do you guys ever want to sell? Do you want to? And sometimes we'd talk to those, sometimes we would, but they're just very distracting. And they kind of just felt very reactive to me. And we thought, well, let's do something proactive. And if we lead it, we're kind of in control here. And so I was very fortunate that we had a client of ours who is a small boutique investment bank who also, the founder there also happened to be a good buddy of mine from back in my Arthur Anderson days of public accounting. And so when occasionally these deals would pop up and people would approach us, I'd call him and say, hey, man, can you give me a little bit of advice and counsel? And one of his pieces of advice was, sure, I'll help you. He said, but the best way to really do this is to flip it and you'd run a process. So he'd been telling me for a few years so it'd been a little bit in my head. And so when we did this, before they go out there and hang that sign out there, the for sale sign, they go through a very rigorous process and with us, and we looked at this, and they targeted just under 300 different firms. And now these were all vetted on just some size, all kinds of things. They went out to market and targeted these folks specifically. And so then we whittled through that year. We whittled it down through a process. And sometimes they said, "I don't have any interest in those Yahoos, Kenji, and those Acuity guys." But in many cases, there were some that we saw. I don't think that one's a good fit either. So through this mutual process, we used those bankers to help kind of whittle it down through lots of interaction, and lots of data sharing, and lots of things like that to get to a final group. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So so you took a little bit of control instead of us all reactively dealing with all this incoming. You're like, we're going to go to market just to see what that does. You took a little bit more control, and it worked. Right. I mean, it actually worked. It turned into Sorren, I think. Is that right?
It worked great. And I say it worked great because by the end of it, we had quite a few offers competing for us, and so
nice.
And also we didn't have, by that time too, it wasn't like there were just some really strange or oddball ones or people lowballing. We'd been working this through. There was a mutual commitment on both sides of us as the seller and as the buyers of like, this is serious. We're not we're not baiting and switching. We're not. And so the folks who came all the way through to the end of the table with us, we're all very serious. And so, and we showed that we were too by all the work we had done. And that created a really helpful environment for us to make a good decision. Because now, as all of us good accountants give us good data points. And now we've got some more benchmarking across each other. And, and you're doing that financially. The financial part is kind of the easy part. But then you're starting to think through the culture alignments. You're thinking through, you're already doing things in collaboration with each of those other firms of going, how do the org charts mesh up? And so you're kind of doing some of that, looking at people and things. And you get a really good, it's exhausting. You're absolutely spent while you're trying to run your firm too, and not distract your people with this. But you get a really good sense of, this is what things would look like for those next few years at least. And that's again was our whole goal. Let's get we felt incredibly fortunate that we had this firm, Acuity, had survived for 20 years and thrived, but we have felt a very strong responsibility to make sure it sustained and to make sure it kept going. And we wanted to give it the best odds for our team and for our clients to making sure it kept going.
Nice. Well, so all of y'all are going through this process, and it's like, I think I'm seeing how this is going to work out. Just to kind of turn this a little bit more personal, I guess you had to start going, I think I'm not going to continue with y'all, or I don't know how that felt, but there was some things in the video you and Matthew talked about that's upsetting at sometimes for you and Matthew to deal with. And one quote y'all said you pulled off the side of the road on a pizza restaurant, basically in tears, going, trying to figure this thing out. Were all the partners of Acuity headed towards this thing, and then you kind of peeled out and started going, y'all, I think I'm going to pull off? How did that work?
How did this happen? How does it happen? How do you make these decisions of what I'm not going, or I'm
right?
We had one of our partners who was definitely like, hey, I'm ready. And it was through one of our acquisitions. We're like, I'm ready to take a pause, maybe just fully retire or just go take a pause. So we knew one was going to, but also they were saying, well, unless these folks offer me some really cool position, maybe I'll stay in. And so, but I think mostly they were thinking like, hey, let's take a time out. That was fine. And well deserved for them, by the way, too. And I was still kind of, it's funny. I got more focused on just the process and running this thing well, and how do we, where does this need to go for the team and for clients? And, I kind of always knew like I'd have a place at one of these things. But I wasn't clear on like, well, exactly what does this look like now? You go from being the founder, the CEO, and you're going, well, I don't know what it looks like. I guess there's going to be some new partner group, or where do I fit on the org chart? As we started doing all that as activities, we started just having some more conversations about, are you excited about this? And this is kind of internally, like excited about it. And I wasn't excited about it. But I also recognized that for me, I'd worked in big public accounting. I'd worked in the big firms before. I had that experience, and I wouldn't have started my career any other way than working in a big firm. It worked really well for me. But I also knew, I'm like, that's not unique to me anymore. I mean, I wasn't a partner in a big firm, but I'd lived that life. And I had just become to a spot where I'm like, gosh, I'm craving, again, change and new things.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I sat in the seat, Jason, of telling everybody like, well, let's just wait and see what kind of position they offer me, and I'll choose based on that. So I was kind of out there in the wind, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
And my other partners, the one I mentioned earlier, were like, I'm into it. This sounds great. I want to do it. I'm kind of in the wind. We'll see what they offer me. And then finally, our investment banker, and the one who's a good friend of mine, said, Kenji, you need to make a call on what you want to do. And I said, well, why can't I just wait to see what they offer? It seems logical to me. He said, this is your process. You need to come with what you want. They need to do that. And so that, I went back and spent some time thinking about that. My wife and I did. We talked about it. And the ultimate decision there was, what a wonderful thing it's been to build this firm up to, we're, almost 150 team members. We'd grown a lot. But I was a little like, you know what? I don't know that you always get a chance to take a step off for a second and just pause. And something about that felt right to me, about saying, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do. But we had just had our kids leave the house, so we were empty nesting for the first time. We had just, we were kind of getting in this new phase of life. And we thought, let's just trust in that good things will happen. And let's maybe take a pause. Because what I did know is that if I went with the rest of the gang to Sorren, there would need to be commitment there. I would, and I'm a very big commitment guy. Of like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go in, and I knew that would be multiple years again.
Yeah.
And so I thought, let's try something a little different. So it was very uncomfortable, and the hard part was honestly with Matthew. Matthew is my best friend. I mean, we are best friends, and so that notion of us not doing something together was hard. It was hard. But I think also it does open up some space for him to step in and lead. Because when you're the founder, like even regardless of the fact that he's smarter than me, he knows he's a great leader. People still defer to you as the founder. They're like, hey, what does Kenji think? And I'm thinking, y'all don't ask me. Like y'all are smarter. He's smarter than me. And so I do think it helped clear the path for him to really show his great leadership skills. And for me to take a little bit of a break and just kind of say, hey, let's try something different. But it was hard, Jason. It was very hard. And there just was not a clear answer. Like it was not a clear answer. And some of there were a few of the firms that when we presented this were like, whoa. Kenji's not coming? Like, they didn't back out, but it was, I didn't want that for them. I didn't want them to feel like we pulled something on them.
Yeah.
But most of the other firms.
You were upfront about it then.
We were upfront way before, And during the process, we were upfront. Yeah. Most of the other firms, and this made me really happy, kind of said, we understand. We get it, Kenji. That's fine. Like you've built a great organization that stands on its own without you, right? And so it's just an interesting feeling, Jason, when you've kind of done the thing. I bet you probably advise folks in Thrival about this all the time. Like, hey, you need to bring in other people. You need to make yourself less the center of the firm. Yeah. And you effectively do that. But then when you do it, this is my experience, I'm going, gosh, am I relevant anymore? Like, it's a weird thing. Like, you kind of do the thing that you're supposed to do, but then you step out of it and go, does anybody need me? Like, do I feel bad about this, or do I feel proud about it? It's a little bit of some mixed feelings.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, one thing you mentioned in some of those shows is, we've had clients. I had one client, he sold his business, was on the phone, and that happened. Everybody's like, man, that's great. What'd you do after that? He's like, I took a nap, I went and took a nap. It's like, really? That's what you did? But you alluded to that. You were at, physical therapy, and this thing closed, and you're like, so is that done? Do I do a thumbs up emoji? It's so weird. It's so
These
weird.
Closings are very weird. I'll tell you, there are those who haven't closed on something like this. It is strange. The very end of it's very anticlimactic. Like, it's dramatic for a lot of different parts of closing a deal and attorneys and all this stuff. When actually it's finally time to close it, I promise you, closing on a house is way more involved and interesting than closing on the sale of your business. It's just a strange thing. You get on a phone call for about 90 seconds, and they go, all right, we good? All right, cool. See you later. And you're like, is that it?
Because the attorneys are kind of doing all the stuff, releasing funds at that point.
All that stuff. Exactly right. So it's a little anticlimactic, and you kind of have this pause of like, you're looking around.
That's weird. It's kind of weird.
And then you start processing this whole thing of going, and we had to right away think, oh my gosh, now we have to communicate this. So our heads went immediately into, we have to go into communication mode. We built out a plan for our team to communicate, but then when things start slowing down and you start communicating, and that was all my focus there. I didn't even think about myself very much until we got things transitioned and integrated. And then you kind of start thinking, well, I'm not there anymore. And what are they doing and what's happening and how are we? And yeah, it's an interesting part to be in again. Like that's where kind of your own personal side of it and your own emotions, the sides of doing an exit are different. All of a sudden, you've got all this capacity and time, and you can certainly take a nap if you want. But like, you probably want to a little bit, but then also, man, I'm used to being a goer. Like, what am I doing now? So there's some interesting things that happen. I think right after you exit.
Yeah, and you have to do something with that. You know, sometimes we're like that. Like I'm not the kind of person that can really retire. It would kind of drive me crazy. Some people are, and you seem like somebody I can't just disappear and go sit on a couch and watch the Golf Channel from now on. And so it's not as hard maybe for some people to keep going because you're going to go, well, you already had a lot of side things you were doing, communities.
I did.
I mean, you just were running stuff anyway that could occupy a lot of your focus. So was the transition emotionally that hard for you, or were you already involved in things you could give your time and emotion to after that closed?
The most emotional thing for me has been not being with the team. I mean, these are my dear colleagues and peers at Acuity who, I was always very careful to not call it our family. I always like to be pretty clear that we all have families, whatever that means outside of work, and those are more important than the people you work with. However, those are just people I'm just very close with, and I'm just so personally proud to have been their colleague with. So I'm emotional in the fact that I didn't get to spend time with them. And then also in that, part of what I think made that emotion harder, Jason, was since I was leaving, I was also trying not to hang on for too long. I was like, I don't want to be a distraction. And so I don't want to be that person that's like, he's over there, isn't he supposed to be gone, or is he gone or not? And so I definitely pulled myself out, but I really would have, that was hard for me. However, on the other side, that was not as hard, to your point, I'm involved in a lot of things in the profession. I care deeply about the profession. So whether it's technology things, or other advisory boards I'm on, or cohorts and groups of firm owners have always been very important to me. And I went and talked to a number of good friends of mine who'd had exits prior to me, not in the accounting space. And I asked them, I said, I think this is going to happen for me. What advice could you give me? What tell me about what you went through? And I was asking from the emotional, personal side, and they are all saying, oh gosh, you do some fun things, and you maybe slow down a little bit and you buy something fun, or you take a cool trip, all those things. But then a number of them said, I kind of went through a dark point of where I felt like I maybe a little depressed, a little down, because I wasn't in the middle of all the action. I wasn't. I got disconnected. It's got disconnected from things, and I was really surprised by that. But I heard it, I listened to it very clearly, and I thought, well, I don't want to go through that if I can avoid it. Yeah. So I thought, well, I've got some built-in really good things already going on in some of these side things. I said, let's lean into those. And because the accounting community has always been so supportive of me, I said, let me just be as supportive as I can there to others and stay connected. So while I lost that connection at Acuity because I was trying to create space and not be a distraction during this new era for Acuity, I really leaned in heavily into the accounting profession. And so people said, hey, you want to be on my podcast like kind folks like you asked, or do you want to come speak at some things? And you and I have done that together too. Yep. That to me helped me stay connected. And I tell you, not everyone's wired this way. I am, though. It was very, very helpful for me on an emotional standpoint because I just lost something big. And staying connected in the accounting community and some of these side projects has been incredibly helpful and beneficial. So I was able to lean into those even more so these past year. And the nice part about that too is I was getting to a point where I liked all these side things so much, kind of as this entrepreneur that I am. Yeah. But I did worry about hey, I can't get too distracted with this new technology or this thing over here because I've got a firm to run. I got a sizable firm to run. So I was always trying to be I'd go and do something with a tech company, and I'd go, golly, I need to get back to Acuity and be focused as the leader there. at least now I could do this with a more clear conscience. But yeah.
Well,
it
takes discipline, doesn't it? As being a leader, that turns out to be, what the heck even is that job? It's such an odd job, and it's really cool what you're saying there. As the lead, kind of in this process, as the CEO founder, right? Those can be even two different things, right? The CEO founder of Acuity leading this process. You had a little bit of weight to kind of decide a lot of things, and so there you are in a position deciding to step away, make room for other people. Because a lot of people probably are not going to go, Kenji, can you leave? Because they probably defer to you, and you love all these people too. And so there's some discipline you have to say, hey, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave and decide, which is sad to say. It's a cutting off kind of a thing. And they're like, why are you leaving, man? We just go sit in the corner and we'll just love to stare at you. And you're like, yeah, you'll get sick of that pretty soon. So you had to pick and walk away in a sense. Finally, am I describing that right? So
you're describing it exactly right. And I think the things that helped me feel more comfortable with that, even though it was an uncomfortable decision to make and a hard decision to make, was I was always concerned that I want to make sure that I'm adding value, that I'm being relevant, and I thought, there are some of those leaders who can just pour in and be everything for a company all the way from when it started all the way to when it gets huge. But I was thinking, I'm like, I think that's really unusual that someone has that skill set that can really lead through all those stages. I started really thinking about that, going, I don't know that I'm the best leader of some really large organization. Like I was feeling like already pretty stretched at 150 people, and I'm thinking, man, a couple hundred, 1,000. I've seen some amazing leaders at that. But I'm like, I just think they're built a little different than I am. So I started, that felt different. And then also, I wanted to make sure that I thought, am I going to be the best leader to make sure Acuity keeps going? I think there's probably, every time we've thought about partnering, whether that's bringing Matthew in or other folks in, we always got better. We always got better when we added. And so I think that's been a strong skill set of like knowing when to bring in other partners for different things. And I thought I'm going to need to do that and clear out a little bit out of the space. And then I tried to think ahead of, what would I want to look back? Do I need to be the one who always there running Acuity? And I thought, I'm going to look back and know that these 20 years of mine at Acuity are going to be my professional highlight. They are going to be, I who knows, I got a lot of time left on this, but like I really believe in my heart of hearts, it will be the thing I'm most proud of and most grateful for because of that, what we did from completely nothing to something and the clients we serve and the people we worked with. And I said, it's like looking at you look at like a professional athlete, someone who's a hero of yours, and sometimes you occasionally see the ones that stay on too long, and you're going, man, this was my hero, but like the guy just doesn't know when to retire, doesn't know when to get out of there, right? And going, oh my gosh, that's not how I remember. I kept thinking, I don't want to be that way. And I've seen Jason, and I think you and I were talking offline before this, we've seen a lot of challenges of this in the accounting profession where folks don't know when to start planning and getting ahead of that. And I've seen some great accountants hold on for too long, and they're there at the end of the day, and they haven't transitioned the firm. The profession, technology's passing them by, client needs are passing them by. It's going to happen to all of us. I never want to get at that spot where I feel like I'm holding the firm back. And so as hard as it was to step away, I wanted to step out at the right time when I'm kind of, let's just try to go out on top. Let's try to go out on top before people are going, hey, when's Kenji going to get a clue over there that he needs to, move along?
Well, that's kind of some things Julie and I, my partner, kind of went through when we were. It took us a couple years to figure out the transition of Thrival, and one of those was this conference. When we started it 14 years ago, started a community 15 years ago. There weren't things, but now since the pandemic, there's tons of amazing community. There's tons of conferences, and that competition makes you start to go, I think we need to become an events company and run a conference. And then you go, is that who we are? And we're like, No, we're educators. We're community leaders. We want to coach, and that's just one-on-one, very intimate stuff. The conference was a way to be with community and inspire, and so it was so hard. We sunset the conference, and we wanted to go out kind of not being there too long. Yeah. And every year when we end the conference at the end of October, we always throw the screen up to go, register for next year. We've done that for years and years, and people were like, "You never put the screen up, man. Something's going on." And we didn't want to make it at the conference because we don't, you don't want to distract from what you're doing there for those people and make it about you. And so then we had just a community call online, and we said, yeah, we're not doing that again. And it's just weird.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird to stop something that's working. Right. That's so weird.
And I think I give huge hats off to you and Julie for doing that. I mean, it takes.
Was what you did.
It is, but it's hard.
Stop when it's working.
It's not something you do, make that decision overnight. It takes some time to do it. It takes some courage to do it. But I think that's one of the hard things. I won't say, it does take some courage, but I think I'd love accountants to more often step back and just take a look at, and try to step outside themselves. This process we put ourselves through gave us the most clarity we've ever had on the firm and who we were. And so that so helped us step out and think about it. Y'all did it on your own saying, hey, we're seeing other conferences come out. But the ability to do that is just so important because the work in accounting just keeps coming and coming and coming. And it's so easy to just put our heads down and just go, 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 go. Mm-hmm. And you pick your head up and boy, life has passed by and so many things have changed. So huge hats off to you and Julie for taking the time to do this. I think those end up leading you into uncomfortable spots in the short term, but I think they lead you into some great places long term that are better aligned to what y'all feel called to do and where y'all can make the biggest impact in the profession. Yeah, it's what that's what you hope happens, but if you stay too long, it can be other people needing you to leave, and that can get awkward. And true, when we went through this, we had to talk to a lot of people. We're like, and the first conversations are we crazy? Are we actually saying this out loud? And then it gets more normal, and then you start talking about options. It kind of makes its way through the process, and then you decide because leadership is there's never a this is what you should do. It's weigh the pros and cons, and you got to pick one of the things. Wouldn't leadership be so? Wouldn't it be so easy, Jason, if there was all leadership was picking the really easy, very clear path?
Totally, that'd be awesome.
It's never that. It's always you're picking between no good. There is no clear answer. All of them are going to have some pain and suffering to them. Right. But that's what the role is. It's part of our job, solving things like that. Well, cool. All right. Well, as we end, it's what are you? Just tell us real quick. What are you doing now? And kind of where can we follow you online or? You can always usually find me on LinkedIn. Luckily, I've got that unusual name that pops up pretty easily. Yeah. This past year, I've been at a lot of conferences. The conference things help me in a couple different ways. One, like I mentioned personally, it's just where all my friends are and the people I care so much about are. So I get a lot out of that, and I love to also share where I can help too. A couple of the other things I'm doing, I've been an active angel investor in accounting technologies. I'm a big believer in I want to encourage the people building new and better tools for us in the profession. So I've been doing some investing there. So conferences are good places for me to see sometimes and connect with them. And then also the Sorren crew's growing too. And so they're always looking for more great firms to come join Sorren. So I don't have any formal role in that, but I try to be someone saying, gosh, if someone's looking at something or wants to talk about my experience, I'm happy to say, hey, let me introduce you to Sorren folks and go have a conversation. Who knows? Maybe something will work out or not. And so you can find me at a lot of different conferences. I'll be speaking at a bunch of them this year. And that's kind of where you'll find me. But I'm also got a site. You can go to KenjiKuramoto.com is up right now. Someone told me I had to do that these days.
Cool.
I'm a little
you got to have your own site.
I blog up there occasionally. I got a few things up there, but just follow me on LinkedIn or reach out to me directly there if there's any of folks in the Thrival network that I feel like I can help them out. I love chatting with other accounting firms.
It was very cool. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Kenji. I asked if there's anything we shouldn't touch on, and you're like, let's touch on whatever. So thanks for being open.
Book here. Thanks for the conversation, Jason. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So we'll see you around at different conferences, Kenji.
For sure.
All right, take care.
Take care.